Most podcasters are not earning as much money as they could from their show. That's just the facts of it. In fact, I'd imagine most smaller podcasts aren't making like hardly any money from their show, which is why you see so many people quit. And that's why I care so much about helping you as a podcaster or someone considering starting a podcast make money from the start with your show. So we often think of making money podcasting though as simply like getting some paid sponsors to put ads on our show, 30-second ad, 1 minute. It's pre-roll, it's mid-roll, it's baked in, it's dynamic. You may have heard some of those kinds of terms. They pay you for the spot and then that's it. And so as a podcaster, when that's your only approach to making money from your show, you often end up on a hamster wheel of like always having to seek new sponsors. And then the truth is they often don't pay what you'd hope. And as a small podcast, it might not be enough for you to feel like your show is like quote unquote worth it to keep going. Then, you might end up quitting. So there are more ways to make money though than sponsors. Although I do believe sponsors are a great and legitimate way to make money in your show. And that's one of the ways I will actually talk about today, but those are not the only ways. And so today we're going to talk through a bunch of the options for ways you can make money podcasting without having a huge show or a huge following. And as a brand new podcaster, yes, like brand new, starting your show, episode 1, these are ways to make money from the start. And when I think back on my own podcast journey, I started my show about 5.5 years ago. And of these things, the last 2 things on the list, I did immediately from episode 1. And then the first thing we're talking about on this list, I did from like episode 10 and then on afterward. So these are all things you can do from day one. And I did it from day one. I would recommend that as well to make your show a money-making, sustainable, and fun thing for your business. So this episode is actually a recast of an episode I created and aired over a year ago. And you're hearing this right now with a fresh intro, but I wanted to re-air this one because it has so much solid tips in it. And you may have missed it the first time, or if you already have listened to it once, you are in a different place in your business now. Maybe you're closer to starting a podcast. Maybe you have started a podcast and you're feeling like it's not making as much money as you'd hope. If so, this episode is for you. And P.S., as you're listening to this, my course, Podcast Success Blueprint, is actually available and open for enrollment. So if you want to get serious about monetizing your podcast, this course will help you do just that. At the time I originally recorded this, I was working on the course. So it's really cool to re-air it and be like, the course is here, go listen. So anyway, that's available. And then if you're thinking of starting a show, but you need a place to start, you're like, I am so interested in podcasting. I feel called to it. I feel like I'd be good at it. It sounds fun to me, but you're like, I don't even know what the first step would be. Get my podcast equipment guide, my podcast getting start guide. That's at elizabethmccravy.com/record. And that's absolutely free. So that's it. Now here is that episode. Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravy, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple 6-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Most podcasters are not earning as much as they could from their show. That is just the facts of it. In fact, I'd imagine most smaller podcasts aren't making any money from their show at all, oftentimes, which is one of the reasons you see so many podcasters quit. We often think of making money podcasting as simply getting sponsors to put ads on our show. They do a 30-second ad, 1 minute, pre-roll, mid-roll, baked in, dynamic, all of those different kinds of words, right? They pay you for the spot. And that's that. That's the way you're making money from your show. And so when this is the only way you're making money from your show, especially if you have a smaller podcast, you are just on a hamster wheel sometimes of always seeking new sponsors. And then they often don't pay what you hope. So for example, let's say your downloads are less than 1,000 per episode. You likely will not be able to expect more than $100 per episode for an ad. And that might even be a generous number. There are more ways to make money than sponsors though. Although I will say, I don't want you to think I'm trying to say sponsors are bad. I think sponsors are actually a great and legit way to make money from your podcast. I do sponsors as well, but that's not the only way. And that's what I want you to like, as a podcaster listening to this, or as someone thinking about starting a podcast, to know that although sponsors are great, there are other ways. And today we're going to talk through 3 different ways, including sponsorships. I'm going to kind of tell you some different angles on that one, but that you can make money from your podcast without having a huge show. As we talk through these, I imagine at least one of these will be something you've never thought of, and at least 2 of them might be something you've never even done for your show. So after you're done, I want you to take action on one of these that resonates with you and try to figure out like, okay, how can I start using my show to make money in this way? Or if you're a new podcaster, start with all 3 from the start. And here's what I'll say about like why this is so important. Podcasting ain't free financially or with your time investment. It's not a free thing to do. It's extremely enjoyable, but it's not free like a lot of enjoyable things aren't. And while it's awesome to accomplish things like passing 1 million downloads or being the #1 podcast in your niche, it's also really nice to just make a ton of money because you have a podcast. That's what I'll say, and make a big impact, make more sales, like have a bigger platform because of your podcast. So I think often as podcasters, we focus too much on the things like the downloads and the chart rankings, when really we can focus more on like, how are the people that are listening to my show connecting with my business and what impact is that making? So podcasting is a way you can directly make money in your business. It's a form of content marketing, and it's an intimate form of content marketing compared to things like email marketing, because people are literally taking you with them in their day listening to you. And in addition to that, it opens a lot of doors, because when you create a podcast, you have basically created your own stage. And by creating your own stage, you open doors for other opportunities. Things like literally speaking on stages, like speaking engagements and things of that nature, or virtual stages, but also being on other podcasts and more growth in terms of your audience and so much more. I'll tell you, a big part of how I grew my following on platforms like Instagram and my email list is through this podcast as well. So it just makes an impact in more ways than one. Now, let's get into the ways to make money podcasting. So the 3 ways I want to share with you. And like I said, we are going to talk about making money through sponsors first. And this is the one most people think of, but hopefully I'll be able to present it in a way that might give you some new ideas. So this one is traditional ads through sponsors. So this is the #1 way people think of when you think about making money podcasting. But again, it's not necessarily the easiest to do or the most financially smart thing if you're a brand new podcaster or a smaller show. And for me, I love a good sponsorship, but this is actually not my personal favorite way to make money from my show. And let me tell you why, and I'm going to give you some ideas for actually using this way. I promise, I love sponsors too. There's just, again, I'm teaching 10 ways in my course to make money. So this is like not my personal favorite, but interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. Here's the thing. If you have products and services to sell, which I get that some podcasters don't, but a lot of you guys listening are small business owners like me, where you have a product or a service that you can talk about in your podcast. So if that's you, wouldn't you rather sell your own stuff versus someone else? And I'll add to that most of the time your own offers are higher value, of literally higher money per customer than what a sponsor is going to pay you per episode to talk about. It's like a better ROI for you, basically, if you made a sell from your own stuff than someone else's. However, again, this is still a great thing to do. And I'm covering this one in my new course with so many methods to help you actually make this happen. But anyway, here's some stuff I want you to consider if you are going to pursue paid sponsors. So first of all, what type of packages will you offer sponsors? And I'll say too, as someone who has done sponsors on my show, there's a few different ways they can come about. So sometimes you're the one pursuing the sponsor, in which case you're the one kind of in the driver's seat. You're making the contract, you're setting the terms. And other times they come to you and they do a lot of podcast sponsorships. They have their own contract and their own terms. And so I've done it both ways, where it's a little bit of me leading or them leading, and both are totally fine. But still, you need to know hey, what's your base goal with this? What kind of packages will you offer? So if you get nothing else from this episode, I highly recommend not selling one-off episode ads, but instead selling packages where the sponsor is buying a certain number of episodes baked in, or 90 days dynamic ads on all your episodes, which is really great to do if you have a larger catalog. And dynamic literally means that it's going to be baked in, so to speak, but only for that limited amount of time. And then it's automatically going on to all the episodes you have in your catalog. So if you're doing the sponsorship as a pre-roll, then all of your episodes have it as a pre-roll. Really cool way to do it. But you can also do baked in ads. Both are really great options. So, but knowing that what package you're going to offer, and then in addition to that, don't just sell one episode. It could be that you're selling a certain number of days, or it could be that you're selling 5 episodes at a time and it's baked in permanently. Totally different ways to structure deals. Another thing to consider, are you trying to go through a network that's hooking you up with sponsors, or are you pursuing deals yourself, pitching yourself and negotiating with your own contracts and all the things, or letting the person who's come to you kind of be the one in the driver's seat doing that? So there are options where you can be a part of podcast networks where they're kind of placing ads for you. Sometimes in that case, they're not host-read ads, which is interesting. You may not have as much control over what the ad content is. So a lot of stuff to consider there. And then also, what slots are available? What parts of your podcast ads do you want to sell? Because you can also do ads for your own products, which we're going to talk about. So you have to think about that as well, of if you're putting sponsors always in the best spot, but you're also trying to advertise your own stuff, how are you going to do that? And then also, how many ads per episode will you do? And this can vary based on how long each individual episode is, but you want to be really cautious not to be one of the podcasts that ends up with tons of reviews of people saying, hey, it was a 20-minute episode, but half of it was ads, and I'm angry, because people do get frustrated by that. And yes, podcasting is a free thing we're putting out there, but there's still an expectation that we're not going to advertise to someone the entire time they are listening. So that's something you'll want to consider. And again, there are so many great options, and you can try a little bit of everything and see what works for you. That's ultimately what I've done. I've done different forms of these deals, and I've pursued sponsors. I've had sponsors pursue me, all kinds of stuff, and you can kind of see what you like the most. I also recommend having a media kit that you can send as a PDF or as a page on your website. Both ways work. But to sponsors, when you pitch your show, and on this page, you're going to want things like some reviews, literally just some of your favorite podcast reviews that maybe can even tell a sponsor why they should pick you. My media kit personally has some really strong reviews where people are saying they never miss an episode. They listen all the way through and things like that, which is what a sponsor wants to hear. You can also include things like your audience demographics, your downloads and listener data. That one's huge. People are not going to sponsor you unless you're providing that. And then also the other places you have an audience where you'll potentially be promoting this sponsor, which this is the cool thing about podcasting. It's not just your podcast downloads and your podcast audience that impacts sponsor deals. It's your entire network, your entire business. So for me, sponsors get a spot on my blog post as well as being mentioned in the episode. There's a sponsored area in the blog for each episode they sponsor. And just that alone, actually, literally, I have someone right now who is sponsoring one of my blog posts, or not even doing a podcast ad, for $500. Just as it's baked in, it's going to stay on my blog, but $500 just for one spot on one post. And that's because my blog has a lot of value at this point, and they know they're going to get clickbacks and all that kind of stuff. And it's some good like link backs for them. So you can also do things like that of just like having someone sponsor only the blog, and you don't even have to make audio, and it takes you 5 seconds. But you can also, in addition to that, reference your sponsor on things like your Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and any of those places. So it could be that your package is like they're getting baked in for 90 days, let's say. And then in addition to that, in your 5 most recent episodes, they're going to be in the show notes and on the blog. And then you're also going to do a few Instagram stories talking about their product. You're going to do a TikTok, but you can make this package wherever you want to really be high value for your sponsor. And lastly, you'll want your package options in that media kit and what's included. And reminder again, try not to do one-offs. It's really not worth your time or theirs, because they are going to see the most traction in terms of sales if they are given more episodes, more chances for people to hear about them. And then for you, it's less work because it's going to be the same ad every time. So it's higher value for you with the same amount of output. And another thing I'll say, I'm covering this one in detail in my course, and something I'm really passionate about. I'm also going to cover how to do good ad read, because there's an art to it. And there's some ads that like sound so addy that like no one wants to listen to it. And there's a way to make your ads sound more seamless and engaging to where people are actually going to listen to the ad, which is a way to get real results from your sponsors. Okay, the second way to make real money from your podcast, this is one I really love, and that's ads for your own products. So talking about ads for sponsors, this would be the same concept, only you're talking about your stuff. And here's what I'll say. If you're not doing ads for sponsors on your podcast right now, which is totally okay not to do, by the way. Again, that's my least favorite. I don't even do that one that much myself right now. But if you're not doing that, then oh my gosh, at the least you need to at least be doing some ads for your own stuff, or do both, which is what I personally like to do. It does not have to be an ad in every single episode. And you'll actually find that it doesn't make sense in every episode of your podcast. Like there are some episodes where you're talking enough about your products that you're like, I don't know that I really need like an ad slot about this. But it's an awesome opportunity to use an ad slot and use the format of an ad and talk about your own products and services that are relevant to what's being talked about in that episode. And that's a huge part of making ads actually listenable for people, is that it feels relevant. So especially if you are a podcaster that's somewhat multifaceted, where you maybe have a lot of different products and services for different people, different stages in their life, or different stages of your business if you're B2B, and then your episodes are all kind of different, you want the ads to match up with what you're talking about to help people actually listen to it. So for me, if the episode is me talking about website tips for non-designers, then I might do an ad for my templates. And y'all, I like to get granular with my ads. If you want to just like get some examples of this, just go listen to some episodes and listen to the ads, and you'll see what I'm saying here. But something I've liked doing this year specifically, and I've done this all year, is instead of like, basically I ask myself, like for ads for my own products, what interesting angle can I take on this that's not just me talking about that product, right? Because I could be like, I sell Showit website templates. Here's why they're great. Here's what it is. But instead, I've done ads where I'm talking about like one specific template and relating it back to that episode. So it's like really, really fun. And sometimes I don't relate back to the episode. I'm going to put that same ad on multiple episodes, which is also a great strategy. So you're not recording a custom ad for every episode. But I'm actually personally a big fan of custom ads if you have time for it, because I think they convert better when you're able to say like, hey, I know we were just listening to so-and-so talk about this. Well, like this is how what she said, if it was an interview, relates to this product. I mean, it's so powerful that way and makes people less likely to skip it. But anyway, if there was a website tips episode for non-designers, I might do an ad for my templates. If the episode is about finances, I might do an ad for my profit sheet product. If the episode is something that I think would help designers, I might do an ad for Booked.Designer. You can also advertise your freebies on your podcast instead of advertising products directly, which is a whole nother thing I love. And I'm actually not going to talk about that on this episode, but that is something I'm covering in the course about how to talk about a freebie and do a funnel, and the selling really happen there, so that then that episode, everything's just free pitches. But yeah, guys, please do this. Don't be afraid to make the ask. I think that's like such a powerful thing to remember, is you have to make the ask. And too often we forget to do that. And we're just providing this amazing free content, but we're never making the ask. We're never telling people like how they can actually work with us. And that's the thing you have to remember. People who listen to your podcast are finding you at all different points. This, your episode 55 might be the first episode they've ever listened to by you. And they don't really know what you sell. They just thought the title sounded good and your voice was engaging and they enjoyed what they were hearing, but they don't actually know what you sell, who you are, what you do. So you have to remind people of that. So please do this. And know that like you have people listening on the other side of your mic, whether it's 50 people right now or thousands of people who are coming to hear from you. And they want to know what it looks like to take the next step with you. And you just have to tell them what that is. So you can do these ads that are for your own products, pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll, whatever you want to do. I would say post-roll is a must. And that's something I do in every episode is I have a post-roll ad for my own stuff. And most people are not listening to that, but it's like, might as well try it. And the cool things about selling your own stuff from your podcast. In the course, like I said, I'm teaching a bunch of different ways to make money from your show, but this is one of the 4 different ways of selling your stuff from your own show that I'm teaching in the course. Now, the third way to make real money from your podcast, this is another one of my favorites, promoting companies that you affiliate for. And this is not promoting them through ads. That would be another method you could do, but I'm just talking about like literally just promoting affiliates. And you don't have to get their permission. They don't have to be officially sponsoring it for you to do this. You can share your affiliate links, share your affiliate codes with your podcast audience in the same way that you would if you were doing an Instagram story about how much you love Flowdesk or whatever it is. So I did the math on this before outlining this episode, and I have made over $270,000 in the last 3 years from affiliate marketing. And that's actually not even the whole time I've had my podcast, because I started my podcast in 2019. I did not pull my P&L from that year to look at that, but I know 2019 was also a really big year for me. I probably should have pulled that to have a better, more accurate number for you guys. But probably since starting my podcast, it's been over 300, maybe even close to 350,000 if you include that year. So anyway, and that's not including all of this year. That's just year to date plus the past 2 years. So anyway, a lot of that, if not the majority of it, is contributed to my podcast. And that's actually not even including softwares I'm just not paying for, because their payout for suggesting them as an affiliate, like their affiliate program, is that you get like a month free, or things like personal stuff. Like I went through a phase where for a while, I was getting free Instacart delivery because I was promoting Instacart on some episodes, and people were actually using it. If you want to use my Instacart link, it's elizabethmccravy.com/Instacart, and you can get that deal. But that's kind of the way you talk about it. You share your link, you talk about the product or the service, whatever it is, the software, and then you share your deal. So yeah, those are all different ways you can pay it off for that. But when I share that financial number, that's just like actual payout money. So your podcast is a powerful place to promote these podcast software services, whatever it is, because you can do so really organically. It's not, here's an ad for this company who's paying me to sponsor this episode. It's, here are 3 ways I'm making my life easier as a busy mom. And then in some of those ways, you're mentioning an affiliate link and you're saying the link verbally, which is really important. So like I just did, elizabethmccravy.com/Instacart. You want to say that. And you can also say, like, if the coupon code was Elizabeth, which I don't think that's the code for Instacart, but that was the code. You're saying the code, but then you're also linking to it directly in your show notes so people can just click it. You also might say the link is in the show notes so that people know that. And if you're not already, you really, I highly recommend this. Keep an organized bank. It could be a spreadsheet. It could be in your project manager, like ClickUp. That's where mine is. But if all the companies you affiliate with, what the deal is you have with them, what the code and link are, and both the deal, I like to reference for myself of like what the deal I'm able to offer a customer is, and then also what am I getting back. And then you want to make a short link for each of those affiliates as well that is ideally at your domain name. So like, I just said elizabethmccravy.com/Instacart. All the companies I affiliate for, basically, if you were to type in elizabethmccravy.com/ that company name, it's going to redirect to my affiliate stuff for them. I mean, Flowdesk, Showit, I mean, all ConvertKit. I mean, so many of them I have that set up with. And I like it being at my domain name because if someone types something in wrong, like, hey, they just went to your website, which is great. And you also have control over it that way when it is a link that's redirecting, because something that you'll find that happens, especially as you build up a large podcast portfolio, catalog, you could say, of episodes. Like I'm at over 230 now. So if I mentioned, let's say, Show It on episode 5, episode 6, episode 30, episode 40, so on. And now they've changed their affiliate program. Now we're saying if I did not do this method I'm talking about of it being my domain link, I have to go back through the blog post and show notes and potentially the audio for all of those episodes if I want the link to work now and update it. Instead, if I'm using a domain name link, I like to use Pretty Links as a WordPress plugin I use if you want a plug there for like something to use. It's free to use. I'm on the free version still, and I've done this like 500 times on my blog. So anyway, you're setting that up there. So now let's say your affiliate link has changed for someone. You're updating it there through your website, and then it's updating all those other places. So you're not having to deal with people changing their stuff. Like, and Show It was just an example I made up, but for real, some other examples like Creative Market and Cultivate What Matters, 2 companies I affiliate for. I actually literally right now, right before I started recording this, just tell you guys this is how it works. I got an $87 payout from Creative Market, $87.19. Literally got that email an hour ago. They just paid me, but they just changed their affiliate program like a few months ago to where now it's completely different links for everything. And so it's like if I have to go update that every single place, it's such a headache, but instead I'm updating it one place. So I walked through this process of like both what I said of like the bank where you're keeping your affiliate stuff and setting up short links on episode 211 of this podcast. So you just have to go back a little bit. That was in April of this year. I talk about that in detail, and it's all about 3 ways to make more money as an affiliate. And those ways really apply well to podcasting. And I would actually say the stuff I share in that episode is even more important if you're trying to do this on a podcast, because you need to be able to say the link out loud as well as allowing someone to click on it. And like I said, it's possible that affiliate deals change over time, so you have to deal with all that. But like, I don't want to have to say, go to dubsado.com/coupon/Elizabeth/ I don't want to have to do all that. So instead, I'm just saying elizabethmccravey.com/dubsado. So like when you're verbally saying something, it matters more. So anyway, when you do this way of making money from your show, I want to add 2, and this is kind of true of all the ways you can make money from your podcast, but it expands beyond the episode itself to your blog, your social media, your email list, and so many other places. So like for me, if I were to promote an affiliate in an episode verbally, like I'm saying like, hey, like I love Instacart. It's one of the ways I save time as a mom. And I talk about it. I'm also putting that in the blog post that goes with that episode, which then is opening up a whole nother door for people to find my link because it's going SEO on all the search engines that way. You can also pin stuff on Pinterest. I could talk about it on Instagram that week by making a reel. I mean, there's so many different ways you can talk about your email list that week. It really just opens up a lot of opportunities. So anyway, those are the 3 ways I want to share with you today. And yes, obviously there are more ways. Like I said, I'm sharing 7 other ways and possibly some other ones in my new course. But I want to recap the 3 ways I just shared. And as I recap them, I want you to think about which one are you most drawn to right now in the season of your podcast. Because a lot of this is seasonal, right? Like as a new podcaster, you might be like, I don't really want to pursue monetization through ads. I want to promote my own products. But maybe you listening right now, you're like, yeah, my show has like 20,000 downloads an episode. Like I'm going to get some ads. Like you need to do whatever makes sense for you. So anyway, first one, traditional ads through sponsors. Second one, ads for your own products. And third, promoting companies you affiliate for. So again, I'm teaching 10 ways in my course to make money from your podcast. And I want to say too, in the course, every single way I'm teaching is a way I actually make money from my show. It's not like, oh, these are some things I don't ever do, but like you could try it. Stuff I actually do. And I'm intentional to do one of these ways to make money every single episode. Every single episode, I'm pursuing that. And you don't even feel it. Like this episode doesn't feel super adsy or salesy because it's not, but it's all very subtle. And I'll add, as I say that, the one exception I have, actually, no, I still do ways on those. One thing I do that I will say is if the episode's really short or if it is a super faith-based episode, I tend not to do ads on it. And that's just been like kind of a personal decision because if I'm only airing like a 10-minute long episode, I don't really want there to be a 3 minutes worth of ads and stuff in it. So anyway, that's kind of something random there that I didn't even really need to share and wasn't in my notes, but I wanted to tell you. So anyway, that's it. I hope this was helpful and I'll be back next week with another episode. Again, thank you so much for listening all the way to the end and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode all the way until the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my website template shop too. Over on ElizabethMccravy.com, you'll find Showit website templates that are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. Maybe it's a challenge to update, and maybe even it's that thing that you really feel like is just completely holding your business back. Your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers, and that's exactly what my M-Shop templates do. So these are pre-made Showit website templates where you can plug and play your content into it with ease and then get started with a website that's designed to actually help you make more money. These templates are designed to be SEO friendly on the back end, and they're not just pretty, but they are very strategic and with all the strategies I teach on this podcast. And best of all, they're easy for you to set up all by yourself. So shop them at ElizabethMccravy.com/shop and come join the M-Shop family of hundreds of happy customers. And as an added perk, you can use the code BBPodcast at checkout to get 10% off any template as a thank you for being a part of the podcast family. So that's BB Podcast for 10% off any template over at ElizabethMccravy.com. And if you love this podcast, don't forget that you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts so that you never miss an episode, and leave a rating and review for the show wherever you're listening. Share it with a friend, share it on Instagram or Facebook. That's a great way to support the podcast and get the word out. All right, I'll be back next week with another new episode.